Hey guys, Christina here, and today I have a look for you at what we read last month, which was September 2021. If you're new here, we are a family of 5. We homeschool, but we also really enjoy reading. So I like to share what we've been reading each month that corresponds not only with school and kind of what we're learning to give some ideas, but also what we're reading personally. I don't have a very big pile today. It's actually quite a small pile. I'm surprised. But first, I kind of matched the wall, don't I? I was just noticing that. I want to start with our read alouds. So this year we're studying Canada, and so our read alouds correspond to the part of Canada we're studying about. So the first book we read was The Day the World Came to Town, 9/11 in Gander, Newfoundland. And it's by Jim Defady, I want to say his name. So I'll just read you on the back what it says. It says, when 38 jetliners bound for the United States were forced to land in Gander, Newfoundland, on September 11, 2001, due to the closing of U.S. airspace, the citizens of the small community and surrounding towns were called upon to care for the thousands of distraught travelers. The response to this challenge was truly extraordinary. And it goes on to say a little bit more, some of the examples of things they did. Now, I'd heard of Gander. Being Canadian, I knew kind of what had happened around that time, and it being the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I figured this was a really good one to read to my kids while we were studying about Newfoundland, because it shows a lot about the culture and it talks a lot about the town of Gander and the history, because Gander actually was a very, very important airport for a long time, and it still is in terms of their, not the airport so much, but the location, like they track the planes crossing the Atlantic and stuff. So it has a really, really important history, not just for Canada, but for many countries. So I wanted to read this book. It was really interesting. It's definitely one I would recommend anybody read. Difficult subject matter. There were times that I was very emotional. I remember, because it's done chronologically. So I'm going to show you inside what it looks like. There's a few pictures here and there. But it's chronological. So it starts off, they're on their plane, and then they suddenly get this kind of news, and they're not sure what's going on. And it goes day by day what happened. And I just, hearing the events and remembering them in the way that they happened and where I was at each time, it was an emotional book to read. There's some of it that's more geared for adults. There's a few things that were kind of over my kids' heads. Some a little bit of editing out I had to do as I read. But it's still such great content to show the tragedy, but also the wonderful things that came out of 9/11. And I learned a lot. There were things I didn't know. There were 2 monkeys on one of the planes that got stuck there. There was, I think it was like 35 hours, I want to say, until they got the last plane unloaded. Those passengers were sitting there with no news. They didn't know what was going on. Even the pilots weren't exactly sure what was going on. So really interesting. Just all the things you don't think of. Gander's a very small town. They had passengers who needed prescriptions. They had animals that needed prescriptions. They had some very top U.S. military people, and that's one example that they share in this book. And just everyday people in the life, and how it's changed the lives of so many people. So I won't say any more, but I highly recommend this book. I know that they did make a musical out of it, or based on the events in Gander. I haven't seen it, but read the book. It's definitely worth it. Okay, after that, we moved on to studying about Prince Edward Island, and so we read this book here, That Boy Red, by Rashna Gilmore. And it says, it's the Depression, but Red McRae's family is managing better than most on their Prince Edward Island farm. 11-year-old Red doesn't always shine at school, but he can't slack off. His older sister Ellen is the local teacher, and she won't tolerate it. When Red's father is injured, the family's situation looks dire. Red must step up to the challenge and fill his father's shoes. Stubborn, even pig-headed, Red makes many mistakes along the way, but lands himself in some hair-raising adventures involving horses, lost sisters, outhouses, and aeroplanes. But his heart is always in the right place. This book has been compared a lot to like Anne of Green Gables, but the boy version. A boy who gets in trouble a lot, but has a lot of good virtues as well. I'll show you the inside. It was a good book. I was a little disappointed it was more on the kind of calling names and a little bit more into the kind of mischief and getting in trouble. But overall, it was a good book. It gave a good view of life in Prince Edward Island around the time of the Depression, of community and neighbors, and there was some really, really funny parts in here. But some of the language, again, stupid, dumb, like pig-headed. So just know that that's in there, but it's a good book. I would recommend that one. And then we moved on to this one here, Jane of Lantern Hill by L.M. Montgomery. So this book is the first book of L.M. Montgomery I've read that's not Anne of Green Gables based. And it says on the back, for as long as she could remember, Jane Stewart and her mother lived with her grandmother in a dreary mansion in Toronto. Jane always believed her father was dead until she accidentally learns he's alive and well and living on Prince Edward Island. When Jane spends the summer at his cottage on Lantern Hill doing all the wonderful things grandmother deems unladylike, she dares to dream that there could be such a house back in Toronto, a house where she, mother, and father could live together without grandmother directing their lives, a house that could be called home. Mixed feelings about this book. The language, the description is fantastic. I mean, you want to increase your vocabulary? This book has some great vocabulary in it. Imagery, you feel like you're there, the way that she describes things. She's an amazing author. The story, I felt like it's definitely not for younger children. It deals with like the mother and father who don't live together, a grandmother who is just a beast. She's horrible and horrid, controlling. So I feel like it's more for kind of the teenage and up. My younger kids got a bit of the story and they enjoyed hearing some different things, but yeah, I would say it was more for teenagers and up. But again, description of Prince Edward Island and the language used, just beautiful, beautiful advanced language. That's my thoughts on that one. So that's it for our read alouds. Now we did listen to a little bit more of the Wingfeather saga. We just weren't fans. We stopped listening to it. I think it was North or Be Eaten, it's called, the second book. We just couldn't get into it, and we never picked up another book right now. So we didn't listen to an audiobook other than we tried to listen to this one a little more, and it just didn't work. All right, so getting into the books my kids read. So my 13-year-old, he read The Other Side of the Wall by Mary E. Ropes. This is from the Good and the Beautiful library. It is a level 11. Give you a quick look here. And it says on the back, when Jacques Hammond receives a confidential assignment that could save the family fortune of a friend, he starts on a daring adventure. Jack fulfills his duty but pays a heavy price. He finds himself wrongfully imprisoned in a tower that rises from the rock of a small, desolate, storm-beaten island. All seems lost, but hope is rekindled when a hidden hole in the prison wall connects him with another prisoner and starts a series of events that would change his life forever. My son gave it 3 out of 5. He said it was okay. Not the best book, but also, he read it. It was okay. And then he read a whole bunch of books. My kids did not keep very good track this month. I didn't either. I had a bunch of independent readers for my kids to do about the Maritimes, about, so many books about Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. I'm trying to remember some of them. I'll try and put some pictures in if I can find them. We have a whole bunch of books on hand and we have them read a number of them. So then my 12-year-old, he read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. My kids are all big Harry Potter fans, so he read that book. And then he read Crystal and the Sea Larks. This is from the Good and the Beautiful library. It's a level 11 as well. I'm pretty sure my oldest read this and I shared it. So it says, so begins the heart-tugging story of Crystal, who lives on an isolated barren island off the coast of Scotland. Unexpected love and friendship, as well as unforeseen tragedy, delicately intertwine in this beautiful tale. He wasn't too impressed by it. We'll have to see. It's a short book, so I will read it one day and see if it's maybe better than they say. I don't know. So then the next one. My 10-year-old, He read Farley Mowat's Owls in the Family. This is a family favorite. This is a good book. And it's a short little read. It's funny. It's a good book. Then he has some Dogman here. My kids love comics, Pokemon, Dogman. Oh gosh, so many of these like similar ones to this. Captain Underpants. A lot of those books. Then my daughter, who was 8, she read The Courage of Sarah Noble, and she said it was good. There's still some pictures in there. So it's a chapter book, but it's like a beginner chapter book, and she really liked this one. So other than like those independent reads, those are what we read, with the exception of me, actually. So I read The Midnight Library, and I can't remember the author, but I'll make sure I insert a picture somewhere. And I link all these books that I can find down below as well, both to Canada and US Amazon, so you can look for the link below. It was really interesting. It's this premise of a person who basically decides they don't want to live anymore, and they take their own life. But before they actually die, they're taken to this place, and for this woman, it is a library, and each book is as if she made a different choice in her life, and she's able to actually go try those lives out. Now, there's some things kind of with it, like you never know when you are actually going to pass, and your time up to try these lives is different. If you want to stay in a life, you just kind of like merge into this life eventually and forget everything about this library. And it's really interesting to take this idea of regrets or the what ifs and kind of to play it out with somebody's life and to see what that person decides. And could maybe a decision you made have a better life for you, but then there's still always negative consequences, right? So what are those? It was a really interesting read. I enjoyed it. I think there's a few things like the ending I felt could have been a bit better, but overall it was a good book. I would recommend it. So that's the book I read last month. I think that's the only one I read. And yeah, that's all the books I have here. So let me know if you have read any of these books down in the comment section down below, and what you've thought of them, but also what you're reading right now, because I love to get suggestions. So otherwise, I hope this finds you having a great day. Take care.